Welcome back to my channel. Today we explore the value of specific coins, the top 10 Washington silver $quarter coins, value in today's market. So let's get started. First up, the 1985D Washington quarter, and explore its current market value, especially in circulated and dirty condition. Many people come across these coins in change, old jars, or collections and wonder if they hold any special value today. While the Washington quarter is a common coin, certain years and mint marks can have added interest for collectors. Let's start with a bit of history. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. It replaced the standing Liberty quarter and has remained the standard U.S. quarter design ever since. The obverse features a portrait of George Washington, while the reverse shows an eagle with outstretched wings. This classic design remained largely unchanged until the state quarters program began in 1999. Now let's talk about the 1985 quarter minted in Denver, which is indicated by the small d mint mark located on the front of the coin, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Over 500 million Washington quarters were minted in Denver in 1985. That high mintage number means this particular coin is generally not rare. However, there are a few details that can influence its value. First and foremost, it's important to clarify a common misconception. Many people believe that all older quarters contain silver, but in the case of the 1985 quarter, that's not true. Quarters minted after 1964 are made of a copper-nickel-clad composition, not silver. So the 1985D quarter does not contain any silver content unless it is part of a special collector's proof set, which is not the case for the standard circulated coins. Now let's focus on the condition of the coin. When we say normal dirty condition, we're referring to a coin that has been in circulation for years. These coins typically show signs of wear and tear, such as faded details, scratches, discoloration, and dirt or grime. This kind of condition is known as circulated in coin collecting terms and falls on the lower end of the grading scale for circulated 1985D Washington quarters in dirty or worn condition. The value is generally around face value 25 cents. That's because the coin is still considered common, and it lacks precious metal content or any major collectible interest. Most dealers and collectors would not pay more than face value for a circulated, dirty example, unless there is something unusual about it. However, there are a few exceptions. If a coin has an error or variety, such as a double die, off-center strike, or clipped planchette, it could be worth more even in circulated condition. Error coins can command prices ranging from a few dollars to hundreds, depending on the severity and demand for that particular type of error. But these are rare and require a trained eye or magnification to spot. Another factor that can affect value is demand among collectors. While there is always some level of interest in collecting coins by year and mint mark, the 1985D quarter is generally not in high demand unless it's in mint state condition. Mint state refers to coins that have not been circulated and show no signs of wear, usually graded Ms. 60 and above. High-grade, uncirculated examples of the 1985D quarter can sell for a few dollars to over $20. Especially if professionally graded by services like PCGS or NGC. But for average circulated coins, the value remains very low. In today's market, if you have a 1985D quarter that's dirty, scratched, or worn, its value is typically just 25 cents. You may find someone who pays a bit more for it at a flea market, coin show, or online marketplace. But that's more about novelty than true collectible value. Unless you discover a rare error or it's part of a larger collection, there's not much to gain from selling a single circulated coin from this year. To sum up, the 1985D Washington quarter in circulated, dirty condition holds little to no premium over face value. It's a common coin from a high mintage year, made of non-precious metals, and does not attract much attention from collectors unless it has an unusual feature. That said, it still has historical value as a piece of American currency and could be a fun addition to a beginner's coin collection. If you're holding on to one of these quarters, it's a good idea to keep it in your change jar or use it for its intended purpose. But if you ever come across a cleaner or uncirculated version, or notice something strange about the design, it may be worth a closer look. Next up, the 1974 Washington quarter without a mint mark. Specifically, we'll be discussing the value of this coin when it's in extra fine condition and how it holds up in the current U.S. coin market. Let's begin with a brief history. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. It quickly became a permanent part of U.S. coinage due to its popularity. The obverse of the coin features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. The reverse, from 1932 through 1998, displays an eagle with outstretched wings, clutching arrows, with olive branches beneath. Now, let's talk about the 1974 quarter. This was a transitional period in U.S. coinage. silver had been phased out from circulating quarters, starting in 1965. Therefore, the 1974 Washington quarter is generally composed of copper and nickel, not silver. However, many people still believe it might contain silver due to earlier issues having that metal. So to be clear, regular 1974 quarters, including those without a mint mark, do not contain silver. The no mint mark variety means the coin was minted in Philadelphia, as quarters from the Philadelphia Mint in that era typically did not carry a mint mark. This is not an error. It was the standard practice at the time, while coins from the Denver and San Francisco mints carried a D or S mark. Philadelphia coins remained unmarked until later years. As for the condition we're focusing on today, find this as a specific grade on the Sheldon coin. Grading scale. In extra fine condition, a coin exhibits very light wear on the high points of the design but still retains most of its original detail. For the Washington quarter, this means the hair details on Washington's head are slightly worn but still visible, and the eagle's feathers on the reverse are clear and distinct in today's market. The value of this specific coin is primarily tied to its condition and collector interest. Since the coin is not made of silver and was minted in large numbers, it is not considered rare in the general sense. Over 800 million quarters were struck in Philadelphia that year. This high mintage keeps its collector value relatively modest. As of now, in 2025, a 1974 Washington quarter without a mint mark in extra fine condition generally sells for around 50 cents to $1 in the collector market. Some might fetch a slightly higher price if they exhibit strong eye appeal or if they come from original rolls or mint sets that preserve the details exceptionally well. However, for most circulated extra fine examples, the value remains under $1. It's important to note that unless the coin contains an error such as a doubled die, off-center strike, or other unusual feature, there is little premium over face value. That said, some errors from the 1970s have become more desirable to specialized collectors. If you suspect your coin may have an error, it's best to have it authenticated by a reputable coin grading service. Another important factor that can affect value is whether the coin has been cleaned or altered in any way. Cleaning a coin can significantly reduce its market value, even if the surface appears brighter or shinier. Collectors prefer natural toning and original surfaces. So, if you find a 1974 quarter in extra fine condition, it's best to keep it. As is. To recap, a 1974 Washington quarter without a mint mark in extra fine condition is a common coin in numismatic terms. Its typical market value in 2025 ranges from about 50 cents to $1, depending on the specific quality and appearance. While it may not be a rare treasure, it still holds appeal for new collectors, coin roll hunters, and anyone interested in U.S. coinage history. If you have one of these coins in your collection, it's worth taking a closer look to see if it has any unusual features or is in exceptionally nice condition. While it's unlikely to bring in a high dollar figure, it's a great educational piece and a stepping stone into the world of coin collecting. Next up, the 1970-90 Washington quarter. Especially when people refer to it as a silver quarter, let's start by clarifying an important point. The U.S. Mint stopped producing quarters with 90% silver content for general circulation after 1964. From 1965 onward, circulating quarters were made from a clad composition that means layers of copper and nickel, not silver. This composition remained the standard through the 1970s, including the 1978D quarter. Therefore, a 1979D quarter is not made of silver. It has a copper-nickel clad composition and contains no silver value unless it's a special variety, which is extremely rare and generally does not apply to coins found in everyday circulation. So, what makes the 1979D Washington quarter interesting? For starters, the D mint mark on the coin indicates that it was minted in Denver. In 1979, the Denver Mint produced approximately 287 million quarters. That's a large number, which means that this coin is not considered rare by mint standards. However, its value can vary depending on condition, demand among collectors, and if it has any unusual errors. Let's focus on the coin in worn condition, the kind you'd typically find in pocket change, junk silver lots, or inherited coin collections. A worn 1979D Washington quarter is considered to be in circulated condition. This means it has visible signs of wear such as fading on the high points of Washington's hair, reduced definition in the eagle's feathers on the reverse side, and general dullness in appearance. Because it's not silver and it was minted in such high numbers, a 1979D Washington quarter, in average circulated condition, holds very little numismatic value. As of today's market, in July 2025, a worn 1979D quarter typically sells for its face value, 25 cents, or slightly above that if sold to a collector who is filling a date and mint mark set. On the secondary market, such as online auction sites or coin dealer inventories, A circulated 1970-90 quarter may sell for around 30 to 50 cents if it is in better than average condition, meaning it still shows a good amount of detail. That said, the buyer's willingness to pay more than face value depends on factors like coin condition, shipping cost, and whether it's part of a bulk sale. Most often, buyers won't go out of their way to purchase a single worn 1970-90 quarter. Unless there's something unique about it. There are, however, a few exceptions to consider. Some 1979D quarters with mint errors have surfaced and can command higher prices. These include off-center strikes, double dies, and clipped planchets. Error coins can be valuable depending on the severity and visibility of the error. For example, a 1979D quarter with a significant off-center strike or a clearly visible double die error might fetch anywhere from $10 to $50 or more, depending on the rarity and demand. If you think your 1979D quarter may have an error, it's a good idea to have it inspected by a reputable coin dealer or submitted to a professional grading service for authentication. Just remember, these errors are not common, and most 1979D quarters in circulation will not have them. It's also worth noting that some people confuse the clad quarter with a silver quarter, simply because of its edge or weight. A silver quarter has a distinct solid silver edge with no visible copper core. If you look at the edge of a 1979D quarter, you'll usually see a copper strip sandwiched between the outer nickel layers. That copper core is a clear sign that the coin is not silver. Additionally, silver quarters weigh slightly more, about 6.25 grams compared to 5.67 grams for clad quarters. To sum up, if you have a 1979D Washington quarter in worn condition, its value in today's market is most likely between 20 and 50 cents. Unless it has an error or is in uncirculated condition, it's generally considered a common coin. While it may not make you rich, it's still a neat piece of American history and a part of the larger story of U.S. coinage. Next up, the 1993 Washington quarter dollar with the Philadelphia mint mark, known as the P-Mint mark. While many quarters from the 1990s may seem common at first glance, certain factors can make them more valuable than their face value. In this video, we'll take a close look at the features, composition, and collector value of the 1993P Washington quarter in today's market. To begin with, the 1993 Washington quarter is part of the standard Washington quarter series that began in 1932. This coin features a portrait of George Washington on the obverse, or front side. Designed by John Flanagan, this iconic image of the first president of the United States remained a staple on U.S. coinage for decades. The reverse side of the coin, in 1993, still carried the original eagle design before the state quarters program began in 1999. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 639 million quarters in 1993. Because of this high mintage, the coin is not considered rare in general circulation. However, that does not mean all 1993P quarters are equal in value, condition, strike quality, and any potential mint errors can significantly influence a coin's desirability and price in the market. It's also important to clarify that standard circulation 1993P Washington quarters were not struck in silver. They are made of a clad composition copper sandwiched between two layers of nickel. However, there is sometimes confusion because the U.S. Mint also struck silver-proof quarters in 1993. Though these were only made at the San Francisco Mint and feature an S-Mint mark. Therefore, a 1993 quarter with a P-Mint mark is not a silver coin. It is composed of copper and nickel and was intended for general circulation. Still, collectors often seek out coins in particularly high grades. Coins that have been preserved in near pristine condition can command much higher prices than worn circulation pieces. The grading scale most commonly used in numismatics is the Sheldon scale, which ranges from 1 to 70. A coin graded MS-60 or above is considered mint state, meaning it has never been in circulation and retains its original mint luster. In today's market, a 1993P Washington quarter in average circulated conditions, something you might find in your pocket change, has a value of about 25 cents, essentially its face value. However, coins in uncirculated condition, particularly those graded MS-65 or higher, can sell for significantly more. A 1993P quarter graded MS-65 might sell for around $5 to $10, depending on market demand and the quality of the strike. Coins graded MS-67 and above become even more valuable, often fetching between $30 and $100 or more, primarily due to their scarcity in such high condition. Another factor that can influence value is the presence of mint errors or unusual die varieties. Double die errors, off-center strikes, or other minting anomalies can elevate the value of a common coin into something much more collectible. While such errors are relatively rare, a 1993P quarter with a well-documented mint error could sell for hundreds of dollars or more at auction. If you're wondering how to determine the grade or potential value of your 1993P quarter, Your best option is to have the coin professionally graded by a trusted organization like PCGS or NGC. These services evaluate the coin's condition, authenticity, and any unique features it may have, then encapsulate it in a tamper-proof holder, with a label stating its grade. In summary, while the 1993p Washington quarter is generally not considered rare, coins in mint state condition or with unique mint errors can hold significant value. For most people, finding one of these quarters in circulation today will likely yield a coin worth its face value. But for collectors with a sharp eye and an interest in grading or error coins, there is definitely potential for added worth. If you come across a 1993p Washington quarter that looks unusually clean or uncirculated, it might be worth setting aside and investigating further. The market for modern coins is continually evolving, and certain examples, especially those in exceptional condition, can become more valuable over time. Next up, the 1995 quarter minted in Philadelphia, the one marked with the letter P, just to the right of Washington's ponytail, and specifically exploring whether this coin has any collector value in today's market when found in normal circulated condition. First, let's clarify a few key facts. The 1995 Washington quarter is not made of silver. While many people refer to it casually as a silver quarter, that term is technically inaccurate for this particular year, unless it's a special proof coin issued in silver, which is not what most people find in everyday change. By 1995, regular issue quarters intended for circulation were made of a copper-nickel clad composition. That means they have an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core. True silver Washington quarters were only minted for circulation between 1932 and 1964, so if you have a 1995p Washington quarter that you found in your pocket change, it's almost certainly not silver. It's a clad coin, and its base metal value is far below $1. But what about collector value? That's where things get more interesting. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 1.1 billion Washington quarters in 1995. That enormous number means that most 1995p quarters are quite common. In average circulated condition, which call normal damage. Condition, these coins typically have little to no premium over face value. That means their value is, quite simply, 25 cents. However, coin collectors do pay attention to condition, rarity, and mint errors. Even a common coin can become valuable if it has an unusual feature or is in exceptional condition. But again, for the standard 1995p quarter that has seen regular use, with light scratches, worn details, and some minor discoloration, the market does not place much of a premium on it. That said, if your 1995p quarter is in uncirculated condition, meaning it was never used in transactions and has retained its original mint luster, the value can increase. Uncirculated examples graded MS63 by professional grading services might sell for around $1 to $2. If the coin is in MS65 or better condition, that could rise to $4 to $6, depending on the coin's appeal and market demand at the time of sale. Where things get more exciting is in the case of mint errors. A very small number of 1995 quarters have been found with striking errors such as off-center strikes, double dies, or These error coins can be worth significantly more, depending on the severity and type of error. For example, a double die obverse where the features of Washington's face or the word Liberty appear doubled might fetch anywhere from $20 to several $100 depending on the clarity and rarity of the doubling. There's also collector interest in coins that have extremely high grades from third-party grading services like PCGs or NGC. A 1995p quarter graded MS67 or MS68, which would be an exceptionally well-preserved coin, can sell for $50 to over $100 at auction, simply due to its scarcity in such a high grade. These are coins that have never been circulated and have virtually no marks or flaws, even under magnification. If you have a 1995p quarter and want to know if it's worth more than face value, you should first examine its condition under good lighting. Look for luster, clarity in the design, and the absence of major scratches. If it looks nearly flawless, it may be worth submitting for grading. Otherwise, if it looks like a typical coin that's been in circulation for years, it's likely only worth 25 cents. To summarize, the typical 1995 Washington quarter with a P mint mark in normal circulated condition holds no significant collector value today. It remains a common coin, part of a high mintage year, and has not yet become rare or historically important in the numismatic world, unless it shows signs of being a mint error or is in an exceptionally high state of preservation. Its value remains at face value. Still, examining coins like this can be a fun way to learn about history, minting practices, and the art of coin collecting. You never know what you might find in your spare change, and sometimes it only takes one unique coin to spark a lifelong interest. Next up, the 1970D quarter. is one of the more intriguing coins for collectors, especially when it comes to varieties and its market value in extra fine condition. To understand the 1970D quarter's value, it's important to know some background. By 1970, quarters were no longer made from 90% silver. The U.S. Mint had removed silver from circulating quarters starting in 1965, transitioning to a copper-nickel-clad composition. This makes the 1970D quarter a regular-clad coin by default. However, what makes this particular year and mint mark stand out are certain rare and valuable errors and varieties that have surfaced over the years. Most notably, the 1970D quarter struck on a 1941 Canadian silver quarter, PLANCHET. Now, let's clear up a common misconception. The standard 1970D Washington quarter, the one minted for regular circulation, is not made of silver and holds only minimal value above face in circulated condition. But collectors are very interested in coins in higher grades, and especially in unique or rare coins. A regular 1970D quarter, in extra fine condition, which shows light wear on the high points but retains much of its detail, is typically valued between 50 cents to $1. This is mainly for its numismatic interest rather than intrinsic value. But the story becomes much more interesting when we start looking at rare varieties or mint errors connected to this date. The most famous of these is the 1970D quarter that was mistakenly struck on a 1941 Canadian silver quarter. This error coin is extremely rare and was first identified by coin dealers in the early 2000s. Only a very limited number of these have been found. Because of the silver content and the dramatic nature of the error, it became a highly desirable collector's item. One of these coins reportedly sold for over $35,000 at auction, making it one of the most valuable Washington quarters ever sold. But it's important to be cautious. Many people think they have a rare or silver 1970D quarter simply because it looks slightly different or has unusual toning. Unless it has been authenticated and graded by a reputable third-party service, its value likely remains very modest. If you suspect your 1970D quarter might be something special, the best course of action is to have it evaluated by a professional grading company like PCGS or NGC. They can determine whether it's a standard issue, a valuable mint error, or a rare planchette coin. In the current coin market, values for coins in extra fine condition depend heavily on collector demand and market trends. For the standard 1970D Washington quarter, demand is modest, as it is a relatively common coin. That's why, even in extra fine condition, the coin's value rarely exceeds $1. However, for collectors trying to complete a Daytan mint mark set of Washington quarters, having a nice example of the 1970D quarter in extra fine condition still holds some significance. It might not be rare, but it's part of the broader history of American coinage and represents the transitional period after silver was removed from circulation. If you're buying or selling a 1970D quarter today, here's what to expect. A typical extra fine coin might sell for 75 cents to $1.25 depending on the buyer, with some graded examples bringing slightly more. If it is a certified mint error or struck on a silver planchette, the price can soar dramatically, often reaching into the thousands. These rare pieces are generally sold at major auctions or through high-end coin dealers. To wrap it up, the 1970D Washington quarter is not valuable in most cases unless it is tied to a rare mint error, such as being struck on a silver planchette. An extra fine example of the regular clad version holds minor value and is of interest mainly to dedicated collectors. The real value comes when rare varieties are involved, which can elevate this otherwise common coin into a high-end collectible. Always verify the authenticity of your coin, especially if you believe it to be rare. Certification, provenance, and condition play major roles in determining value. And as always, when in doubt, consult a professional numismatist or grading service to get an accurate assessment of what your coin is truly worth in today's market. Next up, the 1983D Washington quarter. Specifically, we're focusing on the coin in circulated or average condition, those that have been used in everyday transactions. No high-grade mint state versions, no professionally certified coins, just the kind of quarter you might find in your change jar. To start, let's understand a bit about the coin itself. The Washington quarter has been in circulation since 1932. It features a portrait of George Washington on the obverse side and originally had an eagle design on the reverse until 1998. The 1983 quarters are part of the traditional eagle reverse series. That year, the Denver Mint, indicated by the D Mint mark, produced over 617 million Washington quarters. So yes, this coin is by no means rare in terms of mintage. However, 1983 is an interesting year in coin collecting history. The U.S. Mint did not release official mint sets in 1982 or 1983 due to budget cuts and policy changes. As a result, most of the coins from these years were only available through regular circulation. This meant collectors at the time had a difficult time obtaining uncirculated examples straight from the mint. Today, high-grade 1983 quarters, especially with the D mint mark, are relatively scarce compared to other years. But what about the coin in average or dirty condition, the one that's been handled, spent, and stored in pockets or drawers for decades? If you find a 1983 D quarter in this condition, you might be wondering if it's worth more than 25 cents. The truth is, in most cases, the answer is not by much. In circulated condition, a typical 1983 D quarter, without any special errors or varieties, is worth between 30 and 50 cents. This means that while it is slightly more valuable than face value to collectors, the demand for worn or dirty examples is fairly limited. The condition of a coin is one of the most significant factors in determining its value. Coins in what is known as good or very good condition where the designs are still visible but show clear signs of wear are generally only of modest interest to collectors. If your coin has scratches, discoloration, and overall signs of heavy use, it's likely to remain close to face value, perhaps with a small premium. That said, there are always exceptions. Some collectors are interested in finding these coins too, complete sets or fill album slots for specific mint years. And since the 1983 D quarters weren't available in mint sets, even circulated examples can occasionally attract buyers looking to complete their collections. There's also a special category of coins known as error coins. While rare, some 1983 D quarters may have been struck with off-center designs, doubled dies, or other minting errors. These types of coins can fetch much higher prices depending on the type and visibility of the error. However, finding a genuine error coin is uncommon, and a proper evaluation would require close examination or even a professional appraisal. If you suspect you have a coin with an error, it's worth looking closely at the details. Check for doubled lettering, especially around "In God We Trust" or the word "Liberty." Look for any signs of misalignment or anything that appears out of the ordinary. If you do find something unusual, it might be worth getting the coin authenticated by a grading service or a reputable coin dealer. Another thing to keep in mind is the composition of the coin. Many people assume quarters are made of silver, but that hasn't been the case for circulating coins since 1964. The 1983 D quarter is made from a copper-nickel clad composition, so unless it's a special mint error or an experimental piece, of which are extremely rare, it contains no silver value. In summary, the 1983 D Washington quarter in average circulated condition is not particularly rare, but its value can slightly exceed face value due to the mintage situation in that year. Typically, it may be worth anywhere from 30 cents to perhaps $1 in a best-case circulated scenario. Coins with mint errors or in unusually high grades, however, can command significantly higher prices. But for a dirty, well-used coin, you're generally looking at modest value. Next up, the 1991 Washington quarter with the P Mint mark, minted in Philadelphia. We'll explore its features, production details, and most importantly, how much it's worth in today's market. If you're a coin collector or just someone who stumbled across this coin in your change, this video will give you a comprehensive understanding of its value. Let's start with a quick background. The Washington quarter was first issued in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Over the decades, it became a mainstay of American coinage. The obverse of the coin features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. The reverse, at least until the state quarters program began in 1999, shows a heraldic eagle with outstretched wings perched on a bundle of arrows above two olive branches. The 1991 quarter, specifically the one with the P Mint mark, was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Unlike earlier silver quarters minted before 1965, the 1991 version was made of a copper-nickel clad composition, not silver. So if you're wondering whether the 1991 quarter is silver, the answer is no, at least in most cases. Standard circulation issues from 1991 are made of a copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper nickel. They weigh 5.67 grams and have a reeded edge. In terms of mintage, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 570 million quarters in 1991. That makes this a very common coin in circulation. Most examples are worth only their face value of 25 cents, unless they are in exceptionally good condition or have unique qualities that make them desirable to collectors. Now, when we talk about a coin's value, condition is everything. The coin grading scale, known as the Sheldon scale, ranges from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect coin. Circulated 1991 quarters with a P Mint mark usually fall somewhere between grades very fine VF and about uncirculated O. These coins generally carry minimal to no added value, usually around face value or slightly above, maybe 30 to 50 cents. However, things start to change when we talk about uncirculated or mint state examples. A 1991 P quarter in mint state 60-63 condition might be worth around $1 to $3. As the grade improves to MS65 or MS66, values rise to between $5 and $15. A top-grade MS-67 coin could sell for upwards of $30 to $50 depending on market demand. These higher prices are due to the difficulty in finding coins with perfect surfaces, full luster, and no wear. An important thing to note is that the Philadelphia Mint did not produce proof coins in 1991. Proof coins, known for their mirror-like finish and sharp details, were instead struck in San Francisco and carry an S Mint mark. So, if you come across a 1991 quarter with a P Mint mark and it appears to be a proof or has an unusual finish, it may be worth further examination by a professional. There are also some minor errors and varieties from 1991 that can slightly increase the value of a quarter. For example, you might find coins with die cracks, off-center strikes, or double die obverses. These types of errors are not extremely common, but when found, they can be worth a few dollars to the right collector. A well-documented error coin, in high condition, can sometimes fetch between $10 to $50 or more in extreme cases. In general, if you have a regular 1991 P quarter in circulated condition, it's going to be worth about 25 cents. If it's in mint state condition and has been graded by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC, then it might be worth considerably more, especially if it's near the top of the grading scale. So to sum up, the 1991 Washington quarter with the Philadelphia P Mint mark is a common coin, and most examples won't bring more than face value unless they're in mint state condition or have an error or variety. If you're looking to make money from one of these coins, next up, the 1984 Washington quarter with the D Mint mark, which means it was minted in Denver. We'll explore what this coin is, why some people think it's valuable, and what it's actually worth on the market today. Condition. First, let's understand what the 1984D Washington quarter is. The Washington quarter has been a standard issue of American currency since 1932. It features the profile of George Washington on the obverse or front side of the coin. On the reverse, it traditionally features an eagle with outstretched wings. This design continued until the state quarters series began in 1999. The D Mint mark on this particular coin indicates it was minted in Denver, which is one of the primary mints used for circulating coinage in the United States. It's important to mention that by 1984, these quarters were no longer made of silver. From 1965 onward, quarters were produced using a clad composition of copper and nickel, not the 90% silver that was used prior to that. So, even though many people still refer to older-looking quarters as silver, the 1984D quarter is not made of silver unless it is a special proof version, which this coin is not. So now the big question: what is a 1984D Washington quarter worth today if it's in a normal, dirty, or blackened, circulated condition? The truth is, in most cases, circulated 1984D quarters are worth just their face value, 25 cents. These coins were produced in large numbers, with over 546 million of them struck at the Denver Mint. That high mintage means that this coin is common and easy to find in circulation even today. If your coin is discolored, toned black, or has dirt or wear from years of use, it generally doesn't add value. In fact, it might reduce collector interest. However, not all hope is lost. There are a few exceptions where a 1984D Washington quarter can be worth more than face value. This usually happens in the presence of mint errors or if the coin is an exceptionally high grade. Let's break that down. First, mint errors. These are mistakes made during the minting process and can include things like double strikes, off-center strikes, die cracks, or clipped planche. If your 1984D quarter has one of these noticeable and verifiable errors, it might be worth more, sometimes anywhere from a few dollars to over $100, depending on how rare and dramatic the error is. Next, let's talk about condition or grading. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with higher numbers indicating better condition. A coin in mint state condition, meaning it was never used in circulation and shows no wear, can be worth significantly more. For example, a 1984D Washington quarter graded MS-65 by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC might be worth around $10 to $20. If the coin is graded even higher, like MS-67 or MS-68, the value can increase sharply. But keep in mind, these are extremely rare and almost always look brand new, with no discoloration or dirt. As for dirty, toned, or blackened coins, unless the toning is naturally attractive and uniform, it generally does not increase the coin's value. In fact, collectors often prefer clean, bright examples. If your coin has environmental damage, corrosion, or heavy staining, it will likely be valued at or just slightly above face value, if at all. So where does that leave us today? For most people who find a 1984D Washington quarter in change or an old drawer, especially if it's dirty, worn, or blackened, it's going to be worth just 25 cents. However, it's always worth giving it a closer look. Examine the coin for any errors or unusual features. You can also check the rim, the mint mark, or any doubling in the letters or numbers. which could be clues to a more valuable variety. And finally, if you believe you've found a coin in especially good condition or with a unique error, consider getting it graded by a reputable third-party service. This can help verify the coin's condition and make it easier to sell to a collector or dealer if it has real value. In summary, while the 1984D Washington quarter is a common coin with millions in circulation, there are still rare exceptions. That makes some examples valuable. But for a normal circulated one, in black or dirty condition, it usually remains just a piece of pocket change unless you strike it lucky with an error or an unusually high grade. Next up, the 1980D Washington quarter. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the coin's background, its composition, why some people mistakenly think it's silver, and its current market value if found in circulated condition. Let's start by clarifying a common misconception. Many people believe that quarters from the 1980s might contain silver. However, the United States Mint stopped producing silver quarters for general circulation in 1964. Beginning in 1965, all standard quarters were made from a clad composition, meaning they consist of a copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper nickel. That means the 1980 Washington quarter, including those minted in Denver with the D Mint mark, does not contain any silver. The coin features the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse or front, which was originally designed by John Flanagan. On the reverse, it displays an eagle with outstretched wings, perched on a bundle of arrows and surrounded by olive branches. This classic design remained on quarters until the start of the 50 state quarters program in 1999. Now, let's look at the mintage numbers. In 1980, the Denver Mint produced over 635 million Washington quarters. With such a high mintage, these coins are far from rare. That alone tells us that, unless the coin is in pristine condition or has an error, its base value will not be significantly higher than its face value of 25 cents. However, that doesn't mean the 1980D quarter is worthless. In the world of coin collecting, even common coins can carry a small premium depending on condition, demand, and unique characteristics such as die varieties or minting errors. But for the average, circulated coin, especially one that is dirty, worn, or shows signs of heavy use, the value is generally modest. Let's talk specifics. In the current coin market, a standard 1980D Washington quarter in average circulated condition is typically worth between 25 and 50 cents. If the coin is especially dirty or worn, expect the value to be closer to face value around 25 cents. Dealers are unlikely to pay more than that for a coin in rough condition unless it has some unusual error. If the coin is in better shape, for example, if it has minimal wear and retains some of its original luster, it might fetch between cents and $1 from a collector or hobbyist looking to fill a slot in a Daytanment set. But even that would require the coin to be in better than average condition for circulation. It's worth mentioning that high-grade uncirculated examples of the 1980D Washington quarter can be worth more, but only when graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. A certified example graded MS65 or higher can sometimes sell for between $5 and $15. However, that doesn't apply to coins in dirty or circulated condition, which is what most people find in everyday change. There are also rare instances where mint errors can significantly increase a coin's value. Some examples include off-center strikes, double dies, or clipped planchettes. These types of errors are relatively rare, and unless your coin shows a clear and unusual feature, it's unlikely to fall into this category. So to summarize, a 1900 or Cinta Washington quarter found in normal, dirty condition does not contain silver and is considered common due to the high number of coins minted that year. In today's market, such a coin typically has a value ranging from 25 to 50 cents. Its value is largely sentimental or historical unless it is in exceptional condition or has a notable error. If you come across a 1980D quarter and are curious about its potential worth, consider examining it closely under good lighting. Look for signs of mint errors, and if it appears to be in especially nice shape, you might want to compare it to images of high-grade examples online. Otherwise, it's best to enjoy it for its place in U.S. coinage history rather than expecting a major financial return. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more coin collecting content. See you and next time. Happy collecting!